In the 19th century, few royal families reshaped Europe more than the house of Christian IX of Denmark. When he unexpectedly ascended the throne in 1863, his children were still young, scattered across modest palaces and summer estates, far from the spotlight of great European power. Yet within a single generation, those same children would sit on the thrones of Denmark, Greece, Britain, and Russia, while others married into exiled dynasties or shaped the future of Scandinavia. This is the clear chronological record of what became of each of Christian IX's 6 children: Frederick, Alexandra, George, Dagmar, Thyra, and Valdemar. Their births, their childhoods, their careers, their marriages, their descendants, and the legacies they left behind. No myth, no embellishment, just the historical path of how the children of a once obscure Danish prince became one of the most influential dynastic networks in modern European history. Frederick was born on June 3, 1843, at the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen, the first child of Prince Christian of Schleswig-Holstein, Sonderburg, Glücksburg, and Princess Louise of Hesse-Kassel. At the time of his birth, his father held no throne and occupied a relatively minor position within Denmark's complex aristocratic hierarchy. Europe was entering an era of succession uncertainty, particularly in Denmark, where the main royal line faced potential extinction. Frederick's early years unfolded against this backdrop of dynastic instability, though his parents maintained a household characterized by discipline, modesty, and careful management of limited resources. The Yellow Palace, while respectable, reflected the family's status as junior royals rather than ruling monarchs. Frederick's birth established him as the eldest son in what would become one of Europe's most consequential royal families, though nothing in 1843 suggested the dramatic transformation that lay ahead. Frederick's childhood education emphasized practicality over grandeur. His parents, aware of their uncertain position, ensured their children received thorough instruction in languages, history, and the practical arts of governance. The household operated on relatively frugal principles, with Princess Louise managing expenses carefully and instilling in her children an understanding of financial responsibility uncommon among European royalty. Frederick learned Danish, German, French, and English, studied military science, and received instruction in constitutional theory. His upbringing included regular exposure to Copenhagen's cultural institutions and the company of Denmark's political and military elite. The situation shifted dramatically in 1852 when the London Protocol designated his father as heir presumptive to the Danish throne. This change elevated the family's status, but did not immediately alter their lifestyle. Frederick, now recognizably the future crown prince, continued his education with increased attention to statecraft and diplomatic protocol, preparing for a role that had seemed unlikely just years earlier. When Christian IX ascended the Danish throne on November 15, 1863, Frederick became crown prince at age 20. His position required him to undertake public duties while his father navigated Denmark's most turbulent political period in decades. The Second Schleswig War broke out within months, resulting in Denmark's devastating loss of Schleswig and Holstein to Prussia and Austria in 1864. Frederick participated in military operations during the conflict, gaining first-hand experience of Denmark's diminished position in European affairs. As Crown Prince, he represented the throne at diplomatic functions, traveled to strengthen Denmark's international relationships, and gradually assumed responsibilities in cultural and charitable institutions. Frederick developed a reputation for progressive political views, showing greater sympathy for parliamentary governance than his father's conservative instincts allowed. This created occasional tension within the royal family, though Frederick maintained appropriate discretion in public. His role expanded throughout the 1870s and 1880s as Christian IX aged, with Frederick increasingly serving as Denmark's ceremonial representative at European court events and state occasions. On July 28, 1869, Frederick married Princess Louise of Sweden, daughter of King Charles V of Sweden and Norway. The marriage carried particular significance for Scandinavian unity, symbolically linking Denmark's royal house with its larger northern neighbor, despite historical tensions between the kingdoms. The wedding took place in Stockholm, attended by representatives from Europe's major royal families. Louise brought to the marriage a strong personality, progressive political views, and artistic interests that complemented Frederick's own inclinations. The couple established their residence in Copenhagen, where Louise became involved in cultural patronage and social causes. Their relationship, while subject to the strains common in arranged royal marriages, produced a stable partnership that served Denmark's interests effectively. Louise's Swedish connections proved valuable in maintaining diplomatic channels during a period when Denmark's international position remained precarious following the 1864 defeat. The marriage demonstrated the evolving strategy of Scandinavian royal houses to strengthen regional ties through dynastic alliance, a pattern that would characterize Nordic royal relationships for generations. Frederick and Louise had 8 children, establishing one of the period's most significant royal lineages. Their children were Christian, born in 1870, who would become Christian X of Denmark; Karl, born in 1872, who became Håkon VII of Norway in 1905; Louise, born in 1875; Harold, born in 1876; Ingeborg, born in 1878, who married into the Swedish royal family; Thyra, born in 1880, and Gustav, born in 1887. One daughter, Dagmar, was born in 1890 but died in early childhood. The family maintained a household that balanced royal dignity with the relatively informal atmosphere characteristic of Scandinavian monarchies. Frederick involved himself in his children's education, ensuring they received preparation suitable for their positions while maintaining awareness of changing political circumstances. The marriages of his children extended Denmark's dynastic network significantly. Karl's election as King of Norway following that country's independence from Sweden in 1905 particularly demonstrated the family's expanding influence. Christian's succession as Christian X would span both world wars and the loss of Iceland. Through his children, Frederick's line would connect to the royal houses of Norway, Sweden, and Belgium, establishing enduring relationships that persist in contemporary European royalty. Frederick succeeded his father as King Frederick VIII on January 29, 1906, at age 62. His reign lasted only 6 years, but occurred during a crucial period of constitutional development. Denmark had transitioned to parliamentary democracy, and Frederick embraced a ceremonial role that respected elected government while maintaining the monarchy's symbolic importance. He proved more willing than his father to adapt to democratic reforms, recognizing that the institution's survival depended on accommodation with political change. Frederick traveled extensively during his brief reign, strengthening Denmark's international relationships and representing the kingdom at state occasions across Europe. His approachable manner and genuine interest in his subjects' welfare earned him considerable popularity. On May 14, 1912, while walking alone in Hamburg, Germany, Frederick collapsed on the street and died suddenly, apparently from heart failure. His body was discovered by passers-by who did not initially recognize him. The unexpected nature of his death shocked Denmark and Europe's royal families. Frederick was buried at Roskilde Cathedral, the traditional resting place of Danish monarchs. His relationship with Christian IX had evolved from dutiful son to effective partner in representing Denmark during difficult decades. Frederick's brief reign demonstrated that the house Christian IX had established could successfully navigate the transition to modern constitutional monarchy. Alexandra Caroline Marie, Charlotte, Louise. Julia was born on December 1, 1844, at the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen, the first daughter and second child of Prince Christian and Princess Louise. Her birth occurred during the same period of dynastic uncertainty that had marked her brother Frederick's arrival, with the family's future position still unclear. Alexandra grew up in a household characterized by financial constraint but strong family affection. Her mother maintained a warm, close-knit family environment despite limited resources, and Alexandra developed particularly close relationships with her siblings. The Yellow Palace provided a modest but comfortable setting for childhood, with Alexandra receiving education appropriate to her station, but without the elaborate formality that characterized major European courts. She learned needlework, music, drawing, and basic academic subjects, though her formal education was less extensive than her brother's. The family's rise in status following the 1852 succession settlement gradually altered Alexandra's prospects, transforming her from an obscure Danish princess into a potential bride for Europe's royal houses. Alexandra's education emphasized accomplishments expected of a 19th century princess: fluency in languages, skill in music and drawing, elegant manners, and the social graces necessary for court life. She learned to speak Danish, German, English, and French, though her spelling and writing never achieved complete fluency in any language except Danish. Her personality developed along lines that would serve her well in public life. She possessed natural grace, an engaging manner with people of all social levels, and a genuine kindness that transcended mere politeness. Alexandra's beauty became notable as she matured, with photographs from her teenage years showing classical features and a slender figure that conformed to period ideals. Her family's growing prominence made her increasingly visible to royal matchmakers across Europe. Queen Victoria of Britain, seeking a suitable bride for her son Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, became aware of Alexandra through various channels. The Danish princess offered several advantages: Protestant faith, appropriate royal lineage, beauty, and a family reputation for stability and fidelity that contrasted favorably with some German royal houses. These factors would ultimately determine Alexandra's life trajectory. The process of selecting Alexandra as bride for Britain's heir involved complex diplomatic maneuvering. Queen Victoria, advised by her daughter, Crown Princess Victoria of Prussia, identified Alexandra as the ideal candidate despite political complications arising from Denmark's territorial disputes with Prussia. The Prince of Wales met Alexandra in September 1861 at Speyer, Germany, in what was arranged to appear as a casual encounter. Albert Edward found her attractive and agreeable, and the match proceeded despite initial concerns about her family's relatively modest financial position and uncertain political future. The couple's engagement was announced in September 1862. On March 10, 1863, Alexandra married Albert Edward at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, in a ceremony attended by European royalty and witnessed by enormous public enthusiasm in Britain. She was 18 years old. The marriage occurred just months before her father's unexpected accession to the Danish throne, meaning Alexandra transitioned from Danish princess to British Princess of Wales while simultaneously becoming daughter of a reigning monarch. Her move to Britain represented a permanent separation from her Danish family, though she maintained close contact through correspondence and periodic visits. Alexandra's 4 decades as Princess of Wales established her as one of Victorian and Edwardian Britain's most popular public figures. She undertook charitable work with genuine commitment, particularly supporting hospitals, nursing organizations, and institutions serving the poor. Her natural warmth and ability to connect with ordinary people made her effective in public appearances, and she used her position to raise awareness of social issues. Alexandra developed a distinct personal style that influenced British fashion, with women across the country imitating her clothing, hairstyles, and jewelry choices. However, her position also involved challenges. Her husband's infidelities were numerous and often public, causing her personal distress while requiring her to maintain public dignity. Alexandra managed this situation with discretion, avoiding scandal while privately making clear her displeasure with Albert Edward's behavior. She also experienced progressive deafness, likely caused by otosclerosis, which worsened throughout her life and affected her social interactions. Additionally, Alexandra developed a stiff leg following an attack of rheumatic fever in 1867, giving her a distinctive gait that some admirers copied as the Alexandra limp. Despite these difficulties, she maintained her public duties and remained remarkably popular throughout her long tenure as Princess of Wales. Alexandra bore 6 children during the period from 1864 to 1871. Her first child, Albert Victor, was born prematurely in January 1864, followed by George in June 1865. These 2 sons established the succession line, though Albert Victor's unexpected death from influenza in 1892 would make George the eventual heir. Alexandra had 3 daughters: Louise, born in 1867, who married the Duke of Fife; Victoria, born in 1868, who remained unmarried and lived with her mother for most of her life; and Maud, born in 1869, who became Queen of Norway when her husband was elected to that throne in 1905. A final son, Alexander John, was born prematurely in April 1871 and died the following day. Alexandra proved an attentive but possessive mother, maintaining close control over her children's lives and resisting their marriages and independence. Her relationship with George, after he became heir following Albert Victor's death, involved ongoing tension as she struggled to accept his adult role. Nevertheless, through her children, Alexandra connected the British royal family to Norway's new monarchy and established relationships that strengthened ties between the British and Scandinavian royal houses. Her son George's succession as King George V in 1910 would establish the House of Windsor, linking Alexandra directly to the contemporary British royal family through her descendants. Alexandra became queen consort when Edward VII ascended the throne on January 22, 1901, following Queen Victoria's death. At age 56, she finally assumed the role for which she had been preparing for nearly 4 decades. As queen, Alexandra continued her charitable work and represented the crown at ceremonial occasions, though her increasing deafness made some public functions difficult. She supported her husband in modernizing the monarchy's public image and participated in state visits that strengthened Britain's diplomatic relationships. Edward VII's death on May 6, 1910, ended Alexandra's queenship after only 9 years. She became Queen Mother during her son George V's reign, maintaining a household and continuing selected public appearances. Alexandra lived for another 15 years, spending time between Marlborough House in London and Sandringham House in Norfolk. She maintained contact with her surviving Danish relatives and followed European affairs with continuing interest. Alexandra died on November 20, 1925, at Sandringham at age 80, having witnessed extraordinary changes in European monarchy during her lifetime. Her relationship with her father, Christian IX, had been maintained through regular correspondence and periodic visits to Denmark, preserving strong emotional bonds despite her permanent residence in Britain. Alexandra's legacy includes her descendants' continued occupation of the British throne and her role in establishing the British monarchy's modern public character. Her popularity and graceful navigation of personal difficulties made her one of the period's most successful royal consorts. Prince Christian Wilhelm Ferdinand Adolf Georg was born on December 24, 1845, at the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen, the second son and third child of Prince Christian and Princess Louise. Known in the family as Wilhelm, he occupied the position typical of second sons in royal families, expected to pursue military or diplomatic careers rather than inherit the throne. His early years followed the pattern established for his older siblings, with education emphasizing languages, military science, and the practical skills appropriate to a European prince. Wilhelm grew up in the same modest circumstances that characterized the family before 1852, learning early the realities of limited financial resources and uncertain dynastic prospects. His personality developed along serious, disciplined lines with less natural warmth than his sisters, but a strong sense of duty and capability in mastering assigned tasks. The 1852 succession settlement that designated his father as heir to Denmark's throne altered Wilhelm's position somewhat, establishing him as a prince of the heir presumptive's family, but nothing suggested he would himself become a monarch. Wilhelm's education intensified as he entered adolescence, with particular emphasis on military training and preparation for naval service. He studied navigation, military strategy, and maritime affairs, expecting to pursue a career as a Danish naval officer. His instruction included extensive work in languages, and he became fluent in Danish, German, French, and English, with later additions of Greek and other languages as circumstances required. The curriculum also covered European history, political theory, and the practical arts of governance, providing foundation in statecraft that would prove unexpectedly useful. Wilhelm witnessed Denmark's political turbulence during the 1850s and early 1860s, observing the succession crisis, constitutional debates, and rising tensions over Schleswig-Holstein. These experiences exposed him to the realities of 19th century power politics and the vulnerable position of smaller European states. His father's accession to the Danish throne in November 1863, when Wilhelm was 17, dramatically changed the family's circumstances, but Wilhelm's own prospects still seemed to point toward a military career in Danish service rather than sovereign rule. The transformation of Prince Wilhelm into King George III occurred through the complex intersection of great power diplomacy and Greek political instability. Greece, independent since the 1830s, had experienced ongoing difficulties with its imported Bavarian monarchy under King Otto. When Otto was deposed in 1862, the Greek National Assembly sought a new king, initially offering the throne to Queen Victoria's second son, Prince Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh. British diplomatic protocol and the terms of Greek independence prevented this solution, requiring selection of a candidate from a minor royal house, Denmark's prince. Wilhelm emerged as a compromise candidate acceptable to Britain, France, and Russia, Greece's protecting powers. On March 30th, 1863, the Greek National Assembly formally elected the 17-year-old Wilhelm as King George III of the Hellenes. He accepted the throne with his father Christian's consent, though the decision required him to leave his family and native country permanently. George arrived in Athens in October 1863, just weeks before his father became King of Denmark, beginning a reign that would last nearly 50 years under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. George's early years as King of the Hellenes involved navigating Greek politics' notorious instability while establishing personal legitimacy in a country whose language he initially could not speak. He committed himself to learning Greek, eventually achieving fluency and insisting his children speak Greek as their primary language. George adopted a constitutional approach to monarchy, recognizing that Greece's political culture required sovereigns to respect parliamentary government while maintaining authority through personal character and diplomatic skill. His youth initially worked against him, with many Greek politicians viewing him as inexperienced and easily manipulated. George gradually demonstrated capability in managing political crises, appointing governments, and representing Greece in international affairs. The early years involved frequent political changes, economic difficulties, and ongoing territorial disputes with the Ottoman Empire. Britain's transfer of the Ionian Islands to Greece as part of George's accession arrangement provided an initial diplomatic success. George established his household in Athens, maintaining relatively modest royal circumstances compared to other European courts, and worked to understand Greek political factions, regional interests, and the deep-seated desire for territorial expansion that dominated national politics. On October 27, 1867, George married Grand Duchess Olga Konstantinovna of Russia, daughter of Grand Duke Konstantin Nikolaevich and granddaughter of Tsar Nicholas I, in the Imperial Chapel at the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. The marriage provided George with valuable Russian support and connected Greece's monarchy to one of Europe's great powers. Olga, 16 at the time of marriage, converted from Russian Orthodoxy to Greek Orthodoxy, adopting the Greek form of her name and committing herself to her new country with notable dedication. The couple had 8 children: Constantine, born in 1868, who would become Constantine I of Greece; George, born in 1869; Alexandra, born in 1870; Nicholas, born in 1872; Marie, born in 1876; Olga, born in 1880; Andrew, born in 1882, who would become father of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh; and Christopher, born in 1888. An infant daughter, also named Alexandra, was born in 1870 but died the same year. The family established a court life that balanced European royal protocols with Greek cultural elements. Olga involved herself in charitable work and became genuinely popular in Greece. The children's education emphasized Greek language and culture alongside the broader European awareness appropriate to their multiple family connections. Through his children, George would establish marriages linking Greece's royal house to Russia, Romania, Italy, and other European dynasties. George's reign extended through the late 19th and early 20th centuries, witnessing Greece's territorial expansion in the Balkans and the country's increasing involvement in regional power struggles. The Greco-Turkish War of 1897 ended in defeat for Greece, creating political crisis that George managed while maintaining the throne. The early 20th century brought renewed territorial ambitions with the Balkan Wars of 1912-1913, in which Greece gained significant territory, including Thessaloniki. George's sons, particularly Crown Prince Constantine, led military operations during these conflicts. On March 18, 1913, while walking in Thessaloniki, George was assassinated by Alexandros Shinaz, a Greek anarchist, who shot him in the back at close range. George died almost immediately, ending a reign of 49 years, one of the longest in modern European history. He was 67 years old. His assassination shocked Greece and European royal families, occurring just as Greece achieved major territorial gains and appearing to deprive the country of stabilizing leadership at a crucial moment. George was buried at Tatoi Palace, the Greek royal family's country estate. His relationship with his father Christian IX had been maintained through correspondence and periodic family gatherings, though distance and political circumstances limited direct interaction. George's legacy includes establishing a durable dynasty in Greece despite extraordinarily difficult circumstances, modernizing Greek institutions, and connecting Greece to Europe's broader diplomatic networks. His descendants would continue ruling Greece until the monarchy's abolition in 1973. And through his son Andrew, George is the great-great-grandfather of King Charles III of the United Kingdom. Marie Sophie Frederica Dagmar was born on November 26, 1847, at the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen, the fourth child and second daughter of Prince Christian and Princess Louise. Known in the family as Dagmar, she grew up in the close-knit environment that characterized the household during its years of modest circumstances. Dagmar developed a personality marked by intelligence, charm, and social skill that distinguished her even among siblings noted for their attractive qualities. She received education similar to her sister Alexandra's, learning languages, music, drawing, and the social accomplishments expected of a royal princess, though her training proved more thorough in some areas, particularly languages and cultural knowledge. Dagmar's childhood included close companionship with Alexandra, the two sisters forming a bond that would persist throughout their lives despite vast geographical separation. The family's limited resources meant Dagmar understood financial constraint and learned to manage resources carefully, lessons that would serve her in later life. Her father's accession to the Danish throne in 1863, when Dagmar was 16, elevated the family's status and made her a more attractive marriage prospect for European royal houses. In 1864, Dagmar met Tsarevich Nicholas Alexandrovich of Russia, eldest son and heir of Tsar Alexander II, during a visit he made to Denmark. Nicholas fell deeply in love with Dagmar, and their engagement was announced in April 1865. The match carried enormous significance for Denmark, connecting the country's royal house to Europe's largest empire and providing potential protection against Prussian aggression following the disastrous 1864 war. Dagmar traveled to Russia in September 1865 to prepare for marriage and begin learning Russian language and Orthodox traditions. However, tragedy struck when Nicholas became seriously ill with meningitis. Dagmar nursed him during his final illness, and Nicholas died on April 24, 1865, at age 21 in Nice, France, where he had gone seeking better climate. Before his death, Nicholas reportedly expressed a wish that Dagmar might marry his younger brother Alexander, ensuring the alliance between Russia and Denmark would survive his death. The loss devastated Dagmar, but it also demonstrated her character and created powerful emotional bonds with the Russian imperial family that would shape her future. Following appropriate mourning, negotiations developed regarding a potential marriage between Dagmar and Grand Duke Alexander Alexandrovich, Nicholas's younger brother, who had now become heir to the Russian throne. On November 9, 1866, in the chapel of the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, Dagmar married Alexander. She converted to Russian Orthodoxy, taking the name Maria Feodorovna, by which she would be known in Russia for the rest of her life. The marriage proved successful despite its unusual origins, with genuine affection developing between the couple. Maria Feodorovna committed herself to learning Russian culture, language, and Orthodox traditions while maintaining connection to her Danish heritage. As crown princess, she occupied a prominent position in St. Petersburg society, participating in court ceremonies and beginning the charitable work that would characterize her public role. She established her household according to Russian imperial standards, managing vast resources compared to her modest Danish upbringing. The couple lived primarily at the Anichkov Palace in St. Petersburg, where they maintained a relatively private family life when not engaged in official duties. Maria Feodorovna's intelligence and social skill made her popular within the imperial family and Russian aristocracy. She bore her first child, Nicholas, in 1868, beginning the family that would link the Danish royal house to the Russian imperial succession. Maria Feodorovna became Empress of Russia when Alexander III succeeded his father following Alexander II's assassination on March 13, 1881. The traumatic circumstances of the succession, Alexander II was killed by revolutionary terrorists in St. Petersburg, profoundly affected the new imperial couple. Alexander III adopted reactionary political policies and maintained tight security, living much of the time at Gatchina Palace outside St. Petersburg rather than in the capital itself. Maria Feodorovna adapted to these circumstances while maintaining her public role as empress. She oversaw imperial charitable institutions, particularly those serving women and children, and involved herself in cultural patronage. Her position required participation in endless court ceremonies, management of the imperial household, and representation of Russia at state occasions. Maria Feodorovna maintained influence within the imperial family through her relationship with Alexander III, who valued her counsel on family and dynastic matters. She established a position of authority among the Grand Duchesses and Grand Dukes, serving as a bridge between the autocratic emperor and the sprawling extended family. Her role included arranging marriages for her children, maintaining connections with European royal houses, and preserving Danish-Russian diplomatic ties. The 13 years of her husband's reign saw Russia's continued industrialization and expansion, but also growing revolutionary sentiment that would ultimately destroy the system Maria Feodorovna represented. Maria Feodorovna and Alexander III had 6 children who survived infancy. Nicholas, born in 1868, became Tsar Nicholas II and ruled Russia from 1894 until his abdication in 1917. Alexander, born in 1869, died at age 20 of typhoid fever in 1870. George, born in 1871, served as heir presumptive until his death from tuberculosis in 1899. Xenia, born in 1875, married Grand Duke Alexander Mikhailovich and survived the revolution. Michael, born in 1878, served as heir presumptive after George's death and was murdered by Bolsheviks in 1918. Olga, born in 1882, survived the revolution and eventually settled in Canada, where she died in 1960. Through Nicholas II, Maria Feodorovna had grandchildren, including the 5 children murdered with their parents at Ekaterinburg in 1918. Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei. The family's fate would become one of the 20th century's great tragedies. Maria Feodorovna maintained close relationships with her children throughout her life, involving herself in their education, marriages, and lives. Her daughter's survival of the revolution and escape from Russia preserved her direct descendants, who would scatter across Europe and eventually reconcile with post-Soviet Russia in later decades. Maria Feodorovna's husband Alexander III died on November 1, 1894, making their son, Nicholas II, emperor at age 26. Maria Feodorovna became Dowager Empress, maintaining significant influence within the imperial family and court. She witnessed Russia's defeat in the Russo-Japanese War, the 1905 Revolution, and the growing instability that preceded World War I. During the war, Maria Feodorovna engaged in charitable work while watching her sons Michael and George serve in military capacities. The February Revolution of 1917 forced Nicholas II's abdication. Ending the monarchy Maria Feodorovna had served for over 50 years, she initially remained in Russia, living in Crimea under increasingly dangerous circumstances. In 1918, as civil war engulfed Russia, British ships evacuated Maria Feodorovna and other surviving imperial family members from Crimea. She eventually returned to Denmark, her birthplace, settling at Vidura, a villa she had purchased years earlier with her sister Alexandra. Maria Feodorovna refused to accept evidence of Nicholas II and his immediate family's execution, maintaining hope they might have survived. She lived quietly in Denmark during her final years, witnessing the complete destruction of the world she had known. Maria Feodorovna died on October 13, 1928, at Vidura at age 80. She was buried at Roskilde Cathedral with her father, Christian IX, and other Danish royals. In 2006, her remains were transferred to the Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg, finally reuniting her with her husband Alexandra III. Her relationship with Christian IX had remained strong throughout her life, with Denmark serving as a refuge and connection to her origins even during her decades as Russia's Empress. Maria Feodorovna's legacy includes her role in connecting Danish and Russian dynasties, her survival of Imperial Russia's collapse, and her descendants who spread across Europe following the Revolution. Thyra. Amalia. Caroline Charlotte Anna was born on September 29, 1853, at the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen, the fifth child and third daughter of Prince Christian and Princess Louise. Her birth occurred during the period when the family's succession prospects had clarified, but before Christian's actual accession to the throne. Thyra grew up as the youngest daughter in a close family, receiving similar education to her older sisters, but in an environment that had evolved as the family's status improved. She learned languages, music, and the social skills appropriate to a Danish princess, developing a personality characterized by sensitivity and deep family loyalty. Thyra's childhood included the family's transformation when her father became King Christian IX in 1863, making her a king's daughter at age 10. Her upbringing occurred in the shadow of her older sister's spectacular marriages, Alexandra to Britain's Prince of Wales and Dagmar to Russia's heir, which created both opportunities and pressure for the youngest sister. Thyra became known for her beauty and accomplishments, and expectations developed that she too would make an advantageous dynastic marriage that would further extend Denmark's royal connections. In 1871, Thyra became involved in a romantic relationship that resulted in pregnancy, a situation that created severe crisis for the Danish royal family. The identity of the father has been historically debated, with various theories suggesting either a Danish cavalry officer or other men in Copenhagen's court circles. The pregnancy could not be concealed from the family, and Christian IX and Queen Louise faced the challenge of managing a scandal that could damage both Thyra personally and Denmark's carefully cultivated royal reputation. The situation was handled with extraordinary secrecy. Thyra gave birth to a daughter in October 1871, with the birth occurring away from public view. The child was quickly given up for adoption and raised by a Danish family without public acknowledgement of her royal parentage. The entire matter was suppressed, with the Danish court maintaining absolute silence about Thyra's condition and whereabouts during the crucial months. Thyra herself withdrew from public life during this period. The episode reflected the harsh realities facing royal women whose personal conduct threatened dynastic interests, even as it demonstrated the lengths to which royal families would go to protect their members from scandal's consequences. The secret remained closely guarded for generations, only becoming public knowledge through historical research long after the principals had died. Following resolution of the 1871 crisis, efforts intensified to arrange an appropriate marriage for Thyra. In 1878, negotiations developed regarding a match with Ernest Augustus, Crown Prince of Hanover, son of the exiled King George V of Hanover and his wife Queen Marie. Hanover had been annexed by Prussia in 1866 following the kingdom's defeat in the Austro-Prussian War, leaving the Hanoverian royal family in exile. On December 21, 1878, Thyra married Ernest Augustus in Copenhagen at age 25. The marriage connected Denmark's reigning house to a dispossessed but legitimate German royal dynasty, maintaining dynastic prestige while sidestepping the political complications that would have accompanied marriage into a reigning German house. Thyra and Ernest Augustus established their household in exile, living primarily in Austria at Gmunden, where the Hanoverian family maintained properties. Thyra adapted to exile circumstances, supporting her husband's claims to the Hanoverian succession, while accepting that restoration remained unlikely. The marriage proved stable, and Thyra managed household affairs while maintaining connections to her Danish family. Her position as Crown Princess of Hanover carried ceremonial significance within surviving Hanoverian legitimist circles, though it meant living outside Germany itself due to Prussian hostility to the deposed dynasty. Thyra and Ernest Augustus had 6 children. Marie-Louise was born in 1879 and married Prince Maximilian of Baden. George William was born in 1880 but died at age 32 in 1912. Alexandra was born in 1882 and married Grand Duke Frederick Franz IV of Mecklenburg-Schwerin. Olga was born in 1884 but died at age 16 in 1958. Christian was born in 1885 but died at age 16 in 1901. Ernest Augustus was born in 1887 and eventually married Princess Victoria Louise of Prussia, Kaiser Wilhelm II's daughter, in a marriage that symbolically reconciled the Hanoverian and Prussian dynasties. The deaths of two sons in their youth caused Thyra profound grief. Christian's death in 1901 particularly affected her, and she never fully recovered from the loss. Through her surviving children, Thyra connected the Danish royal house to various German dynasties and established relationships that persisted into the 20th century. Ernest Augustus, Crown Prince of Hanover, died on November 14, 1923, ending their 45-year marriage. Thyra lived as a widow for another 6 years, maintaining connections with her children and grandchildren while living quietly in exile. She died on February 26, 1933, at Gmunden, Austria, at age 79. Throughout her life, Thyra maintained close emotional bonds with her father Christian IX and her siblings, with the Danish royal family providing crucial support during her various difficulties. Her relationship with Christian IX reflected both the protective instincts he showed after her 1871 crisis and the continuing family solidarity that characterized the dynasty. Thyra's legacy includes her role in maintaining Hanoverian dynastic continuity and her descendants' integration into German nobility, though her personal story reflects the constraints and tragedies that could mark royal women's lives in the 19th century. Valdemar Christian Franz was born on October 27, 1858, at Bernstorff Palace near Copenhagen, the sixth and youngest child of Prince Christian and Princess Louise. His birth occurred when the family's position had solidified following the 1852 succession settlement, giving Valdemar advantages his older siblings had not enjoyed in their early years. As the youngest child, Valdemar grew up in a household that had evolved from modest circumstances to near certain royal status, with his father expected to inherit the Danish throne. Valdemar received thorough education in languages, history, and military science, with particular emphasis on naval training consistent with Denmark's maritime character. His personality developed along independent lines, and he showed early aptitude for and interest in naval affairs. Valdemar was 5 years old when his father became King Christian XIX, meaning his formative years occurred as a king's son rather than a minor prince. This circumstance provided him better resources and clearer prospects than his older brothers had initially experienced. Valdemar's education reflected expectations that he would serve Denmark in military capacity while supporting the throne without expectation of inheriting it, a role characteristic of younger sons in royal families. Valdemar entered the Royal Danish Navy as a young man, beginning a career that would span decades and provide him genuine professional identity beyond merely ceremonial royal duties. He received training at Denmark's Naval Academy and served on various ships, advancing through ranks based on competence and experience rather than purely titular promotion. Valdemar participated in training voyages, developed expertise in navigation and naval operations, and earned reputation as a capable officer who took his service seriously. His career occurred during the period when European navies were transitioning from sail to steam power and undergoing modernization that required technical knowledge and adaptability. Valdemar engaged with these developments, maintaining awareness of naval technology and contributing to discussions about Denmark's maritime defense. He reached the rank of admiral, representing Denmark at naval occasions and serving in administrative capacities that involved strategic planning and institutional management. His naval career provided Valdemar with purpose and respect within Danish military circles, distinguishing him from royal figures who held rank without performing meaningful service. The Navy became central to Valdemar's identity, and he maintained active involvement in maritime affairs throughout his life. On October 22, 1885, Valdemar married Princess Marie d'Orléans, daughter of Robert, Duke of Chartres, and Princess Françoise of Orléans. The marriage connected Denmark's royal house to France's Orleanist branch, one of the competing claimants to the French throne following the monarchy's final abolition in 1870, Marie brought to the marriage connections to France's legitimist royal circles and relationships with Catholic European dynasties. The marriage required navigation of religious differences, as Marie was Catholic while Valdemar remained Lutheran. The couple established arrangements allowing each to practice their own faith while raising their children in the Lutheran tradition required for members of the Danish royal family. Valdemar and Marie settled at a portion of the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen, maintaining a household that balanced royal dignity with relative informality. The marriage produced genuine affection between the spouses, and Marie adapted to Danish life while maintaining her French cultural identity. Their household became known for hospitality and cultural interests, with Marie involving herself in artistic patronage and social causes. The marriage demonstrated the Danish royal house's continued strategy of creating diverse dynastic connections across Europe, linking Denmark to France's exiled royalty, much as Thyra's marriage had connected to Hanover's dispossessed dynasty. Valdemar and Marie had 5 children who survived to adulthood. Their first child, Auge, was born in 1887. Axel was born in 1888. Eric was born in 1890. Vigo was born in 1893. Margrethe was born in 1895 and eventually became the only daughter. These children, while members of the Danish royal family, occupied positions as younger relatives of the reigning line and were not expected to succeed to the throne. The sons pursued various careers, with some serving in Denmark's military and others engaging in international aristocratic circles. A notable development occurred when these children married non-royal spouses, resulting in their loss of succession rights and royal titles under Danish law. They and their descendants became counts and countesses of Rosenborg, a Danish noble title created specifically for this purpose. This established a pattern that would characterize Danish royal cadet branches in the 20th century. Through his children, Valdemar created a numerous Danish aristocratic family that maintained connection to the royal house while pursuing more independent lives than previous generations of royal offspring. Valdemar himself remained active in Danish public life, representing the royal family at naval and military occasions, supporting cultural institutions, and maintaining Denmark's international royal connections. He lived through extraordinary changes in European monarchy, witnessing the fall of Russia's, Germany's, and Austria-Hungary's empires during World War I. Valdemar died on January 14, 1939, at the Yellow Palace in Copenhagen at age 80. He was the last surviving child of Christian IX, having outlived all his siblings and witnessed the transformation of Europe's political landscape. Throughout his life, Valdemar maintained close relationship with his father, Christian IX, serving as reliable support to the Danish throne and embodying the family solidarity that characterized the dynasty. His relationship with Christian IX reflected the affection of youngest son for father and the continuing bonds that survived despite the geographic dispersal of Christian's children across Europe. Valdemar's legacy includes his long naval service, his role in establishing the Rosenborg cadet branch of Denmark's royal family, and his position as the final surviving link to Christian IX's generation. Through his descendants, he contributed to Denmark's modern aristocracy and maintained family connections that persist in contemporary Danish society. The 6 children of Christian IX of Denmark transformed European monarchy through their marriages, their reigns, and their descendants. Frederick the VIII continued Denmark's royal line, establishing the dynasty that rules today. Alexandra became Britain's queen and great-great-great-grandmother of King Charles III. George I would establish Greece's monarchy, founding a dynasty that ruled for 110 years and created the line from which Prince Philip descended. Dagmar became Russia's Empress, witnessing the empire's height and its catastrophic collapse. Thyra maintained Hanoverian dynastic continuity through decades of exile. Valdemar served Denmark with distinction while establishing the Rosenborg noble line. Together, Christian IX's children connected Denmark to thrones across Europe, earning their father the title Father-in-law of Europe. Their marriages created a network linking Britain, Russia, Greece, and Germany through blood and alliance. Their descendants occupy royal positions today, continuing the dynasty Christian IX established when he unexpectedly inherited Denmark's throne in 1863. From modest origins in Copenhagen's Yellow Palace to courts across the continent, these 6 lives illustrate how dynastic strategy, personal character, and historical circumstance combine to reshape European monarchy. Their collective story remains one of the most remarkable family sagas in modern royal history.